My name is Elaine Wilson, and at 67 years old, I never expected to hear those words from my daughter. You're not family, you only stayed because it was convenient. Vanessa spat while signing inheritance papers. My son-in-law Marcus just stared at the floor, silent as a stone. Without a word, I signed another document and walked out. Little did my daughter know what those papers really meant. She found out weeks later, and let me tell you something. Never mess with a woman over 60. Before I share my story, where are you watching from today? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up for yourself against your own family. I spent 40 years as an elementary school teacher before retiring. The classroom was my second home. But my first was always with Frank, my husband of 38 years, before cancer took him from us 15 years ago. We met in college during the late 70s. I was studying education, and he was in business management. Our love story wasn't particularly dramatic. We simply fit together like two puzzle pieces that had been searching for each other. His smile could light up a room, and his laugh made everyone around him join in. Frank was kind, hardworking, and dedicated to building a life together. When Frank was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, the doctors gave him 6 months. He fought for 18. Those final months were both beautiful and excruciating. We talked about everything, made plans for the future I'd have without him, and said all the things that needed saying. When he passed, I thought the pain might kill me too, but I had our daughter Vanessa to think about, even though she was already an adult with her own life. Vanessa is 42 now, with a sharp mind for business like her father. Growing up, we were incredibly close. She'd sit at the kitchen table grading papers alongside me, her little legs swinging as she played teacher, while I did the real work. But something changed after she married Marcus 14 years ago. Marcus is 44, tall and handsome with a quiet demeanor. He works in finance and has always been ambitious, which seemed to bring out similar qualities in my daughter. Over the years, I watched Vanessa transform from my sweet, thoughtful daughter into someone increasingly fixated on status and possessions. Our weekly coffee dates became monthly, then quarterly, then just holiday gatherings. Phone calls grew shorter, her patience with me thinner. The only times I saw true joy in her eyes anymore was when she talked about their vacation home or new car. Despite the growing distance with Vanessa, my relationship with my grandchildren has remained the bright spot in my life. Emma is 14 now, smart as a whip and already showing artistic talent that reminds me of Frank's mother. Tyler is 10, a bundle of energy who loves baseball and video games in equal measure. I babysit them whenever Vanessa and Marcus need a night out, though those requests have become increasingly rare as the children have gotten older. The house I live in, or lived in until recently, has been in Frank's family for 3 generations. His grandparents built it in the 1930s, a beautiful craftsman with dark wood trim and a wraparound porch. When Frank's parents passed, they left it to him rather than selling it. The house has witnessed every milestone in our family's history, from bringing Vanessa home from the hospital to Frank's final days in the sunroom where he could watch the birds at the feeders. Frank's family business, Wilson Home Supply, started as a single hardware store and grew to a chain of 7 locations across the state. Frank and his brother Harold built it from the modest operation their father had run, turning it into a regional success. When Frank died, he left his 50% share to me, with the understanding that it would eventually pass to Vanessa. Harold ran daily operations, while I remained a silent partner, trusting his business acumen as Frank had. What Vanessa never knew was that I had my own investments. Frank had taught me the importance of financial independence, and with my teacher's salary, I'd quietly built a modest portfolio over the decades. I lived frugally, saving what I could, remembering my own parents' struggles during tough economic times. Vanessa saw this as unnecessary penny pinching rather than prudence. I still remember the happier times, when Vanessa would bring the whole family over for Sunday dinners. We'd laugh around the table, Frank carving the roast while Vanessa recounted stories from work. Marcus would bounce baby Emma on his knee, his face softer then, his ambition not yet eclipsing everything else. Those memories sustained me as the years passed and the warmth between us cooled. I tried everything to maintain our relationship. I joined social media to see photos of the grandchildren. I learned to text instead of call when Vanessa claimed to be too busy to talk. I sent thoughtful gifts and cards for every occasion. I volunteered to pick up the children from school and activities when both parents were working late. I swallowed my hurt when plans were canceled at the last minute, or when Vanessa checked her phone throughout our rare visits. I told myself that this was just a phase, that families go through cycles of closeness and distance. I never stopped trying. Everything changed when Harold died unexpectedly of a heart attack 8 months ago. He was only 62, seemingly healthy, and his death shocked everyone. The funeral was somber, with business associates and family friends filling the church. Vanessa stood beside me, gripping my hand as they lowered her uncle's casket. It was the first time in years I'd felt truly connected to my daughter, united in grief. 3 weeks after the funeral, Harold's lawyer called a meeting to discuss the will. I assumed Harold had left his share of the business to his ex-wife or perhaps to charity, as they'd never had children. Instead, sitting in the leather chair of the law office, I learned that Harold had left his 50% share of Wilson Homes Supply to me. He wanted to ensure the business stayed in the family, the lawyer explained, sliding the paperwork across the desk. Harold believed you would honor Frank's wishes for the company's future. I sat stunned, now the sole owner of a business I'd never actively participated in. Beside me, Vanessa's face flushed red, her knuckles white as she gripped her purse. "But I've been working with Uncle Harold for years," she said, her voice tight. "He was mentoring me to take over someday." The lawyer nodded sympathetically. "Mr. Wilson spoke highly of your contributions, Mrs. Carter. I believe he expected your mother would involve you in decisions going forward." The car ride home was silent. Vanessa stared out the window, her profile rigid with anger. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold. "I hope you plan to sign the business over to me. I'm the only one who knows how to run it." "We should discuss it when we're both calmer," I replied. "This is all very sudden." That conversation never happened. Instead, Vanessa's behavior grew increasingly hostile. She stopped bringing the grandchildren for visits, claiming they were too busy with extracurricular activities. When I called, she was short and dismissive. At family gatherings, she spoke about me as if I weren't in the room. "Mom's getting forgetful," she told Marcus over dinner at their house, a month after the will reading. "I'm concerned about her making business decisions in her state." I was sitting right there, perfectly cogent, cutting my chicken. Marcus glanced at me uncomfortably but said nothing. I chose not to dignify the comment with a response, but it stung deeply. My friend Barbara saw the change in Vanessa before I allowed myself to acknowledge it. We were having lunch at our favorite cafe when she brought it up. "Elaine, I don't like the way Vanessa's been treating you," she said, stirring her iced tea. "I've known that girl since she was in pigtails, and this isn't like her." "She's just processing Harold's death," I defended, though the excuse sounded weak even to my ears. Barbara reached across the table and squeezed my hand.
"No, honey.
"She's after the business and probably the house too. You need to protect yourself." I dismissed Barbara's concerns, unwilling to believe my daughter could be so calculating. But doubt had been planted, and I found myself paying closer attention to Vanessa's words and actions. The confirmation came one evening when I stopped by Vanessa and Marcus's house unexpectedly to drop off a birthday gift for Emma. The front door was unlocked, and I heard voices from the home office. I paused in the hallway, not intending to eavesdrop until I heard my name. "Mom needs to sign everything over before she does something ridiculous like donate it or sell to a competitor," Vanessa was saying. "The business is worth millions now, and that house sits on nearly an acre in the most desirable neighborhood in town." "I know," Marcus replied, his voice lower. "But are you sure about selling the family home? Your dad wanted to keep it in the family." "Dad's not here anymore," Vanessa snapped. "And that house is outdated. We could build something twice the size with what the lot would sell for." I backed away silently, my gift for Emma still clutched in my trembling hands. The betrayal cut deep, but even worse was the casual dismissal of Frank's wishes, of our family history, of everything I thought we valued together. That night I called Jessica Montgomery, a lawyer friend who had helped with Frank's estate planning years ago. Her secretary scheduled an appointment for the following day. I spent a sleepless night looking through old photo albums, tracing Frank's face in our wedding pictures, wondering how our daughter had become someone who could speak so coldly about our family legacy. Jessica's office was warm and inviting, with framed degrees on the wall and family photos on her desk. I explained the situation, my voice breaking several times. I need to know my options, I concluded. I want to protect what Frank and Harold built, but I also don't want to punish my grandchildren for their mother's actions. Jessica took detailed notes, her expression compassionate but professional. There are several ways we can approach this, Elaine. Let me outline some possibilities. As she spoke, a plan began to form in my mind. I would need to be strategic, careful, and strong. For perhaps the first time since Frank died, I felt a sense of purpose beyond day-to-day existence. I would protect our legacy, teach my daughter an important lesson, and ensure the grandchildren's future all at once. Let's schedule another meeting, I told Jessica as our time concluded. I need to gather some documents and make some decisions. Driving home, I rehearsed what I would say when Vanessa inevitably brought up signing over the business. I wouldn't let on that I knew her plans. I would appear cooperative while putting my own pieces in place. The thought made me sad but determined. Sometimes love means setting boundaries even with your children. The day we were scheduled to sign the inheritance papers dawned bright and clear. A beautiful spring morning that belied the tension awaiting me. I dressed carefully in a navy blue suit that Frank had always loved, pearl earrings he'd given me for our 30th anniversary, and a subtle application of makeup. If I was going to face this difficult day, I wanted to do it looking my best. Vanessa arrived precisely at 9:30 to pick me up, Marcus in the passenger seat of her luxury SUV. I slid into the back seat, noting how neither of them turned to greet me properly. "Good morning," I said, buckling my seatbelt. "Morning, Mom," Vanessa replied, her eyes meeting mine briefly in the rearview mirror. "Did you bring all the documents Jessica asked for?" "Yes, everything's in my bag." I patted the leather satchel Frank had given me years ago. Marcus half turned in his seat. "How are you doing today, Elaine?" His voice was gentle, almost apologetic. "I'm fine. Thank you for asking." I appreciated the small courtesy, so lacking in my daughter these days. The 20-minute drive to Jessica's office was mostly silent, broken only by Vanessa's occasional phone call about work matters. I gazed out the window, watching familiar landmarks pass by, wondering how we'd reached this point of such disconnect. Jessica greeted us in the reception area, professional in a charcoal gray pantsuit, her salt and pepper hair pulled back in a neat bun. She ushered us into a conference room, where stacks of documents waited on the polished table. "Thank you all for coming," she began, taking a seat at the head of the table. "Today we'll be finalizing the transfer of Harold Wilson's business interests and reviewing some additional estate planning documents for Elaine." Vanessa sat up straighter, a slight smile playing at her lips. "We appreciate your efficiency, Jessica." Jessica began explaining the documents, pointing out key clauses and signing locations. I listened carefully, asking questions when something wasn't clear. Each time I did, Vanessa's foot tapped impatiently under the table. "This clause about the business valuation," I said, pointing to a paragraph on page 3. "Could you explain this again?" Jessica began to elaborate, but Vanessa cut in. "Mom, it's standard language. Jessica has already gone over this." "I just want to be clear on what I'm signing," I replied, keeping my voice even. "That's completely reasonable," Jessica affirmed, giving Vanessa a pointed look before continuing her explanation. As the meeting progressed, Vanessa's impatience grew more obvious. She checked her watch repeatedly, sighed audibly when I asked questions, and exchanged glances with Marcus that she thought I didn't notice. When Jessica presented the document that would transfer full ownership of Wilson Homes Supply to Vanessa, I hesitated, pen hovering above the signature line. "This transfers everything immediately?" I asked. "Not in portions or over time." "That's right," Jessica confirmed. "As we discussed, this would transfer your full ownership effective immediately." Vanessa made a small noise of frustration. "Mom, we talked about this. I'm the only one who understands the business. You've never even worked there." "I'm just making sure I understand," I said. "You've never understood business," Vanessa snapped. "Dad and Uncle Harold handled everything. You just taught kids how to spell." The room went silent. Jessica's eyebrows rose slightly, and Marcus looked down at his hands. Vanessa, he murmured, but she wasn't finished. Let's be honest here, my daughter continued, her voice rising. You're not equipped to run a business. You're getting older, and decisions this important shouldn't be in your hands. Just sign the papers so we can move forward with our plans. Our plans? I asked quietly. The business needs modernizing. The house needs updating if we're going to get top dollar. These are decisions that affect my future, my children's future. Your father wanted the house to stay in the family, I reminded her. He built memories there, as did his parents. That's when it happened. Vanessa slammed her hand on the table, making us all jump. You're not family, she hissed. You only stayed because it was convenient. You're not a Wilson by blood. I am. The business, the house, all of it should come to me directly, not through you. The words hit me like physical blows. Not family. After 40 years of marriage, decades of keeping Frank's childhood home filled with love, years of nurturing relationships with his relatives, Marcus stared at the table, his face flushed with what I hoped was shame at his wife's outburst, but he remained silent. The conference room felt suddenly airless. My chest tightened and I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Jessica, ever the professional, maintained her composure, but her eyes reflected concern as she looked at me. I think we should take a short break, she suggested, standing up. Elaine, would you like some water? I shook my head slightly, finding my voice. No, thank you. I'd like to proceed. Jessica hesitated, then nodded, sliding another document in front of me. This wasn't the one we'd been discussing, but rather the alternative paperwork we had prepared in private. I recognized it immediately. Without looking at Vanessa or Marcus, I signed my name where indicated, the pen moving smoothly across the paper. Then I stood, gathering my belongings. I believe we're finished here, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Jessica can explain the rest. I walked out without another word, ignoring Vanessa calling my name. In the quiet of the hallway, I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked toward the elevator, leaving behind the daughter who had just disowned me and the son-in-law who hadn't defended me. The weight of grief was heavy, but beneath it was something else, something that felt strangely like freedom. The drive home from Jessica's office was a blur. I'd called a taxi rather than wait for Vanessa and Marcus, unwilling to endure another silent, tense car ride. When I arrived home, I moved through the rooms like a ghost, touching familiar objects, wondering how many more days I would spend in this house that held so much of my history. That evening I sat in Frank's old armchair, a photo album open on my lap. Page after page showed our life together. Frank and me on our wedding day, his face young and beaming. Vanessa as a newborn in my arms, Frank hovering protectively. Family vacations to the lake house, Vanessa's graduation, our family Christmas gatherings. I traced Frank's face with my fingertip, tears falling onto the plastic sheet covering the photos. What happened to our little girl? I whispered to his image. How did we raise someone who could say such things? The next morning, I drove to the cemetery where Frank was buried. It was a peaceful place, with old oak trees providing dappled shade over the well-maintained grounds. I placed fresh flowers on his grave and sat on the small bench nearby. I could use your advice right now, I said aloud, not caring if anyone heard me talking to a headstone. Vanessa says I'm not family. After all these years, all we shared, she says I just stayed because it was convenient. My voice broke on the last word. I told Frank everything just as I had when he was alive. About Harold's will, Vanessa's reaction, the awful meeting at Jessica's office. The breeze rustled through the oak leaves, and somewhere nearby a bird sang. It wasn't an answer, but the peaceful sounds calmed me. I signed the papers we prepared with Jessica, I continued. Vanessa doesn't know yet what they really mean. She thinks she's getting everything her way. I feel terrible about the deception, but I can't let her erase what you and Harold built. I can't let her sell our home to strangers. I sat there for nearly 2 hours, sometimes talking to Frank, sometimes just sitting in silence. When I finally stood to leave, my heart was still heavy, but my resolve had strengthened. That afternoon, I met Barbara at our favorite cafe. The moment she saw my face, she knew. It happened, didn't it? She asked, pulling me into a hug. What did Vanessa do? I recounted the events at Jessica's office, my voice catching when I repeated Vanessa's cruel words. Barbara's expression darkened with each detail. "That ungrateful girl," she muttered. "After everything you've done for her, Frank would be heartbroken. Part of me wants to forgive her, to just let it all go," I admitted, stirring my untouched tea. "She's still my daughter, and I love her." "And the other part?" Barbara asked. "The other part wants her to understand the consequences of her actions. To learn that she can't treat people this way, especially family." "You've always been too forgiving," Barbara said gently. "Sometimes people need to face consequences to grow." That evening, Tyler called me on his new phone, excited to share about his baseball game. Vanessa usually monitored his calls, but he'd apparently snuck away to his room to talk to me. "Grandma, I hit a home run. Coach said I have a natural swing just like Dad." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I wish I could have seen it." "Mom said we might be moving soon," he continued, his voice dropping. "She said we could get a bigger house with a pool if you signed some papers." My heart sank. Did she say anything else about moving? Just that we'd have to change schools, but the new one would be better. But I don't want to leave my friends, and Emma is really upset about it too. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Not only was Vanessa planning to sell the family home, but she was also planning to uproot the children from their school and friends. All for a bigger house with a pool. The materialism that had gradually taken over my daughter's life was now threatening her children's stability and happiness. The next day, I scheduled an appointment with Michael Donovan, the financial advisor who had helped me manage my investments since Frank died. His office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel, a contrast to Jessica's more traditional space. "Elaine, good to see you," he greeted me, ushering me into his office. "It's been a while. How have you been?" I explained my situation succinctly, outlining what had happened and what I feared was coming next. "I need to know exactly what assets I have control over, what options are available to me, and how I can protect both the business and my grandchildren's interests." Michael nodded, pulling up my financial information on his computer. "You're in a stronger position than you might think, Elaine. The investments we've made over the years have performed exceptionally well. Combined with your pension and Social Security, you have considerable independent resources." He outlined various strategies, explaining tax implications and long-term projections. I took careful notes, asking questions and weighing alternatives. "The most important thing," Michael emphasized, "is that you maintain legal control of the business until you're absolutely certain about transferring ownership. Once it's gone, you can't get it back." By the time I left Michael's office, I had a clearer picture of my financial situation and the leverage it gave me. I wasn't wealthy by Vanessa's standards, but I had options. I could maintain my independence. I could protect Frank and Harold's legacy. That night I couldn't sleep. I paced the house, touching the woodwork Frank's father had installed, looking out windows that had framed our view for decades. I picked up family photos, studied the familiar faces, and wondered how things had gone so wrong. Part of me wanted to call Vanessa, to try one more time to reach the daughter I had raised. The little girl who once wrote me Mother's Day cards with crayon hearts and told me I was her best friend. But another part, a part that was growing stronger by the day, knew that this pattern would continue unless something changed dramatically. By morning I had made my decision. I would protect what needed protecting. I would stand up for myself and for what Frank would have wanted. And if that meant Vanessa had to learn a difficult lesson, then perhaps that was what she needed. I called Jessica's office and scheduled another appointment. "I'm ready to finalize everything we discussed," I told her. "And I need your help with one more thing. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more confrontation, more pain. But for the first time since Vanessa had spat those hateful words across the conference table, I felt a sense of purpose stronger than my grief. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about honoring Frank's memory, protecting his legacy, and yes, even about helping Vanessa find her way back to the values we had tried to instill in her. "Never mess with a woman over 60, I whispered to myself as I prepared for bed. "We've survived too much to back down from a fight that matters." The days following my decision were filled with research and preparation. I spent hours online learning about trusts, inheritance law, and business succession planning. I took notes, printed articles, and compiled questions for Jessica. This was too important to leave any detail unexplored. My second meeting with Jessica was scheduled for early afternoon on a Tuesday. Her office was as welcoming as always, but this time I arrived with purpose rather than confusion. I've given this a lot of thought, I told her, setting my folder of research on her desk. I want to create a comprehensive plan that protects the business, preserves the family home, and ensures my grandchildren's future education. Jessica looked impressed by my preparation. You've done your homework, Elaine. Let's go through your ideas and make sure everything is legally sound. For the next 2 hours, we crafted documents that would reshape the future Vanessa thought she had secured. Instead of transferring full ownership of Wilson Home Supply directly to her, I would create a trust that would hold the majority stake, with professional management in place. Vanessa would have a position and income from the business, but couldn't sell it without trustee approval. The family home would be placed in a separate trust, ensuring it remained available for family use but couldn't be sold for at least 20 years. Most importantly, I set aside significant funds for Emma and Tyler's education and future needs, structured in a way that their parents couldn't access for other purposes. Are you sure about this direction? Jessica asked when we had outlined everything. It's perfectly legal, but it will certainly create conflict with Vanessa. I'm sure, I replied, more confident than I had felt in months. Vanessa needs to understand that family legacy isn't just about money and possessions. It's about values, history, and respect. Then let's draft the formal documents, Jessica said. We can have everything ready for signatures by next week. Before leaving, I asked Jessica one more question. What do I tell Vanessa? She's expecting me to transfer everything directly to her. Jessica considered this. You're not obligated to explain the details until the documents are executed. If she asks, you can simply say you're finalizing things as discussed. The next day, I visited Emma and Tyler while Vanessa and Marcus were at work. Their housekeeper, Maria, had known me for years and always welcomed my visits. The children were delighted to see me, especially since our time together had become less frequent. As we sat in their playroom, Tyler building with Legos while Emma showed me her latest art project, I carefully brought up the future. I hear you might be moving soon, I said casually. Emma's face fell. Mom and Dad want to move to Lakeside Estates. I'd have to leave all my friends and my art teacher. Nothing's decided yet, I reassured her. Sometimes adults talk about possibilities that don't happen. But Mom already showed a real estate lady our house, Tyler interjected. She said we could have a pool and a game room in the new house. I kept my expression neutral despite the confirmation that Vanessa was already planning to sell. Well, whatever happens, I want you both to know that your grandfather's house will always be there for you to visit. It's part of your heritage. What's heritage? Tyler asked, looking up from his Lego creation. It's like a special gift from the people in your family who lived before you, I explained. Like stories and places and even special objects that get passed down to help you remember where you came from. Emma nodded thoughtfully. Like Grandpa Frank's chess set that Dad keeps in his office? Exactly like that, I smiled. And also like the treehouse your grandpa built in the backyard, and the height marks on the kitchen door frame where we measured your mom every birthday. By the time I left, I had planted seeds of family history in their minds without criticizing their parents. I wanted them to understand what might be lost in the pursuit of a newer, bigger house with a pool. The day of our second meeting at Jessica's office arrived. Vanessa called that morning, her voice artificially pleasant. Mom, I'll pick you up at 1:30 for the meeting with Jessica. Marcus has a work thing, so it'll just be us. That sounds fine, I replied, matching her tone. I'll be ready. When she arrived, Vanessa was dressed immaculately in a designer suit, her hair and makeup flawless. She greeted me with a quick kiss on the cheek that didn't reach her eyes. You look nice, she commented, glancing at my simple blue dress. Ready to get this paperwork finished? Yes, I think it's time to move forward, I agreed. In the car, Vanessa chatted about house listings she'd been reviewing and expansion possibilities for the business. I listened quietly, noting how she spoke as if everything was already hers to decide. Not once did she ask my opinion or acknowledge that these were significant changes to family traditions. Jessica welcomed us into the conference room where another stack of documents waited. She made eye contact with me briefly, a silent confirmation that everything was prepared as we had discussed. Today we'll be finalizing the transfer of assets and establishing some trusts. Jessica began, her tone professional. Elaine has made some decisions about how she wants to structure things going forward. Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. Trusts? I thought we were just transferring ownership directly. A trust provides better tax advantages and protection, Jessica explained smoothly. The end results will be the same. This seemed to satisfy Vanessa, who nodded and settled back in her chair. Jessica began walking us through the documents, explaining each one in terms that emphasized the benefits while glossing over the specific controls I would maintain. Vanessa barely read what she was signing, her pen moving quickly across each signature line. I signed more deliberately, fully aware of what each document meant. Jessica had arranged the papers so that the most significant changes were embedded in legal language that Vanessa clearly wasn't taking time to understand. When we reached the final document, Vanessa's impatience was palpable. Is this the last one? I have a meeting at 4. This is the last one, Jessica confirmed. It establishes the education trust for Emma and Tyler. Education trust? Vanessa frowned. That wasn't part of our discussion. It's something I wanted to do for the grandchildren, I said. To ensure their college is covered, whatever happens. Vanessa hesitated, then shrugged. Fine, that's actually helpful. She signed quickly, then stood up. Are we done here? All signed and official, Jessica confirmed, gathering the documents. I'll have copies sent to both of you by the end of the week. Vanessa checked her watch. Great. Mom, do you need a ride home? Or can you call a cab? I really need to get to my meeting. I'll be fine, I assured her. Go ahead. After Vanessa left, Jessica turned to me. Are you okay, Elaine? I'm better than I've been in months, I replied honestly. How long before she realizes what she's actually signed? When my office sends the document copies on Friday, they'll include a summary letter that spells everything out clearly. So I'd say by the weekend, unless she has her own lawyer review things sooner. I nodded, a mixture of sadness and resolve washing over me. Thank you for your help, Jessica. I know this was the right thing to do, but it doesn't make it any easier. That evening, I sat alone at my dining room table with a simple meal. The house felt quieter than usual, as if it too was waiting for the coming storm. I raised a glass of Frank's favorite wine. I did what I had to do, I told his memory. I hope you'd understand. The seeds had been planted. Now I just had to prepare myself for the harvest, whatever it might bring. 3 days after signing the papers, I moved into a small but charming apartment about 10 minutes from the family home. I had found the place weeks earlier, drawn to its sunny rooms and proximity to both a park and a small community center. I took only what was truly mine. My clothes, personal items, and a few pieces of furniture that held special meaning. The rest I left in the house, part of the heritage I was trying to preserve. My new home was on the 3rd floor of a well-maintained building, with a balcony overlooking a courtyard garden. It was nothing like the spacious family home, but it had a cozy appeal that suited my new circumstances. I spent the first day arranging my belongings, hanging pictures, and making the space feel like mine. Dorothy Fletcher, my next-door neighbor, introduced herself that afternoon with a plate of homemade cookies and an offer to show me around the neighborhood. She was a widow like me, about my age, with a direct manner and quick laugh that I immediately appreciated. Best decision I ever made was downsizing after Howard died, she told me as we sat on my new balcony. Too many people stay in big houses filled with ghosts when they could be starting fresh. I'm not sure this was entirely my choice, I admitted, surprising myself with the candor. But I think it might turn out to be the right move anyway. Dorothy became a regular visitor, stopping by for coffee or inviting me to join her walking group in the mornings. Her friendship was uncomplicated, with none of the history or tension that had come to define my relationship with Vanessa. For the first time in years, I found myself laughing easily and often. My phone rang 2 days after I moved in, a number I didn't recognize. It was Marcus calling from his work phone. Elaine? It's Marcus. I went by the house and the neighbor said you'd moved out. Yes, I found an apartment that suits me better, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Why didn't you tell us? His voice sounded genuinely confused. Vanessa is going to be upset. I made my decision after our meeting at Jessica's office. It seemed best for everyone. There was a pause before Marcus spoke again, his voice lower. About what happened at the office. What Vanessa said. I should have said something. I'm sorry. The apology caught me off guard. Thank you, Marcus. That means something to me. I never agreed with how she's been handling this, he continued. The business, the house, all of it. I've tried to talk to her, but she's so focused on what she thinks we deserve. And what do you think you deserve, Marcus? I couldn't help asking. Another pause. Nothing we haven't earned, he finally said. Look, can I stop by sometime? Just to talk. I agreed to meet him for coffee the following week, curious about this unexpected outreach. After hanging up, I wondered if there might be more complexity to the situation than I had realized. Was Marcus a willing participant in Vanessa's plans? Or had he been going along to keep the peace? The next day, Friday, Jessica's office sent the document copies as promised. I received my set by courier in the morning. By mid-afternoon, my phone was exploding with calls and texts from Vanessa. I let them go to voicemail, not yet ready for the confrontation I knew was coming. Her messages grew increasingly frantic and angry. Mom, call me immediately. There's been some mistake with the paperwork. What the hell is this trust nonsense? This isn't what we discussed. You need to call Jessica and fix this now. Finally, a text that simply read, I'm coming over. The neighbor said you moved. What is going on? I texted back a single response. I'm not available today. We can talk tomorrow. That night, Dorothy invited me to dinner in her apartment. I welcomed the distraction, enjoying her stories about her career as a travel agent and the places she'd visited. When I returned to my apartment, there was a note taped to my door in Vanessa's handwriting. We need to talk. I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. I slept surprisingly well, waking to sunlight streaming through my new curtains. I took my time with breakfast and coffee, preparing myself mentally for the coming storm. At precisely 10, there was a sharp knock at my door. Vanessa stood in the hallway, her face tight with anger. Behind her, Marcus looked uncomfortable, his hands in his pockets. May we come in? Vanessa asked, her voice clipped. I stepped aside, gesturing to my small living room. They entered, Vanessa looking around with barely concealed disdain. So this is where you've been hiding, she said. When were you planning to tell us you moved? I wasn't hiding, Vanessa. I was establishing my new home. Marcus sat on the sofa, but Vanessa remained standing, pulling a folder from her purse. Let's cut to the chase. What is this? She slapped the papers on my coffee table. This isn't what we agreed to. You were supposed to transfer the business directly to me. I never explicitly agreed to that, I pointed out. I agreed to sign papers that would secure the family legacy, which is exactly what I did. By putting everything in trusts that I can't control? By appointing some corporate trustee to oversee my family business? By preventing us from selling that outdated house? The business isn't just yours, Vanessa. It was built by your father and uncle over decades. The house has been in the family for generations. These aren't just assets to be liquidated when convenient. Vanessa's face flushed. You had no right. You're not even a Wilson by blood, like I said before. You have no right to dictate what happens to the Wilson family legacy. The words still hurt, but this time I was prepared. I was Frank's wife for 40 years. I helped him support Harold when the business was struggling. I maintained the family home, preserved the traditions, kept the connections with extended family. If that doesn't make me family, I don't know what does. We're going to contest this, Vanessa threatened. No judge will uphold these documents when they hear how you tricked me. You signed willingly, I reminded her. You just didn't bother to read what you were signing because you were in such a hurry to get what you wanted. Marcus finally spoke up. Vanessa, Elaine has a point. We should have read everything carefully. She whirled on him. Whose side are you on? This affects our future, our plans. Maybe our plans needed reconsidering, he said quietly. We don't need a bigger house. The kids don't want to move schools. And the family business is doing well as is. Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. Have you been talking to her behind my back? We had coffee once, Marcus admitted. But this isn't about taking sides. It's about what's right for everyone, including Emma and Tyler. The mention of the children seemed to deflate some of Vanessa's anger. She sank onto the sofa beside Marcus. The education trust, she said. You set aside money for the kids. Yes, I confirmed. Their college is secured. No matter what happens with the business or between us. A long silence fell. Finally, Vanessa looked up at me, her expression still angry but with something else beneath it. Confusion, perhaps. Or the first glimmer of self-doubt. Why did you do it this way? Why not just tell me what you were planning? Would you have listened? I asked. When was the last time you actually heard anything I said, Vanessa? You decided what you wanted and expected me to fall in line. Another silence. Marcus placed his hand over Vanessa's, but she pulled away. This isn't over, she said, standing up. I'm going to talk to our lawyer. That's your right, I acknowledged. But before you spend money on legal fees, you might want to actually read the documents. You still have a role in the business. You still have access to the house. Your children's future is protected. The only thing you can't do is sell everything and erase our family's history. Vanessa gathered her papers and walked to the door, Marcus following. At the threshold, she turned back. You could have just told me you didn't want to sell the house, she said, a note of something like hurt in her voice. Would you have heard me? I asked again. She didn't answer, just turned and walked away. Marcus lingered for a moment. I'll talk to her, he promised. Give her time to process this. After they left, I sat on my balcony, emotions swirling. I had stood firm, maintained my resolve in the face of Vanessa's anger. But the hurt in her final comment suggested there might be more to her feelings than just thwarted materialism. Perhaps beneath it all, she felt excluded from decisions just as I had. That evening, Emma called me secretly from her phone. Grandma? Are you okay? Mom came home really upset, and I heard her talking about you moving.
I'm fine, sweetheart.
I found a nice apartment that's easier for me to manage. Can I come see it? Mom and Dad are fighting, and I don't want to be here. Not today, but soon, I promised. Things are a bit complicated right now between your mom and me, but we'll work it out. Is it because of the house? Tyler said Mom wants to sell it, but I don't want to move. It's about a lot of things, Emma. Grown-up things that are hard to explain. But I want you to know that I love you and Tyler very much, and nothing will change that. After we hung up, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The confrontation with Vanessa had been painful but necessary. I had set boundaries, protected what mattered, and stood up for myself. Now I had to find a way forward that might eventually heal our family, even if the relationship would never be the same. 6 months passed, each day bringing small changes to our family's new reality. My apartment had become truly home, with plants thriving on the balcony and artwork on the walls, some of it Emma's creations. I had joined a book club at the community center and volunteered, twice a week teaching literacy to adults, finding unexpected fulfillment in sharing my teaching skills again. Vanessa's initial fury had evolved through several phases. She had indeed consulted a lawyer, who apparently confirmed that contesting the documents would be costly with limited chance of success. Her next strategy was to ignore me completely, refusing to take my calls or allow me to see the grandchildren. This lasted about a month before Marcus intervened. This isn't fair to Emma and Tyler, he had told her. According to what he later shared with me, they shouldn't be punished because you're angry with your mother. Marcus began bringing the children to visit me every other weekend, initially without Vanessa's knowledge, and later with her reluctant permission. These visits became the highlight of my weeks. I took them to parks, museums, and sometimes just baked cookies in my small kitchen, while they told me about school and friends. Through Marcus, I learned that Vanessa had abandoned plans to sell their house and move to a more upscale neighborhood. The education trust one had established had actually relieved financial pressure, allowing them to stay put without sacrificing the children's future opportunities. He also reported that Vanessa was working with the business management team I had put in place, initially with resentment, but gradually with grudging respect for their expertise. Marcus and I maintained our quiet alliance, meeting occasionally for coffee to discuss the children and the gradual thawing of Vanessa's anger. He confessed that our family conflict had forced him to examine his own values and priorities. I got caught up in it too, he admitted during one of our talks. The bigger house, the status symbols. But watching how all this unfolded, seeing what really matters, it's been a wake-up call. By the 4th month, Vanessa had progressed to curt but civil text messages about the grandchildren's schedules and occasional business matters. Never personal, never warm, but communication nonetheless. I considered it progress. My new neighbor Dorothy had become a dear friend, our morning walks and evening glasses of wine a cherished routine. She had a perspective that helped me see my situation more clearly. Families are complicated beasts, she told me one evening. My son didn't speak to me for 3 years after I sold the vacation cabin he thought he'd inherit. Now we're closer than ever. Time has a way of sorting things out when the love is real. In my volunteer work at the community center, I found unexpected healing. Teaching adults to read, many of them immigrants working multiple jobs while studying English, reminded me of the privilege of education that Frank and I had emphasized with Vanessa. Their determination and gratitude put my own troubles in perspective. As the 6-month mark approached, I decided it was time for a more direct attempt at reconciliation. I texted Vanessa. I'd like to host a family dinner. Your choice of date. The grandchildren miss the family being together. 3 days passed with no response, and I had nearly given up when my phone chimed. Sunday at 5. We'll bring dessert. It wasn't warm, but it was acceptance. I spent the next 2 days planning the menu, cleaning my apartment, and preparing mentally for whatever might unfold. Sunday arrived bright and clear. I had set my small dining table with Frank's mother's china, preserved from the family home. The apartment filled with the aroma of pot roast, Frank's favorite and a Sunday tradition throughout our marriage. When the doorbell rang at precisely 5 o'clock, I took a deep breath before answering. Vanessa stood there, stiffly formal in a blue dress, holding a bakery box. Behind her, Marcus smiled encouragingly while Emma and Tyler bounced with excitement. Grandma! Tyler rushed forward for a hug. We brought chocolate cake. Your favorite, Emma added, also embracing me. Vanessa handed me the box with a tight smile. Hello, Mother. It wasn't warm, but it was respectful. A step beyond the cold texts of recent months. Dinner began awkwardly, with conversation limited to safe topics like the children's activities and the unusually warm weather. Marcus made valiant efforts to keep things flowing, asking about my volunteer work and complimenting the food. Emma and Tyler, blissfully unaware of adult tensions, chattered about friends and school projects. After dessert, when the children had moved to the living room to look at books I had bought them, I decided it was time. I cleared my throat, drawing the attention of Vanessa and Marcus. I'd like to talk about what happened and where we go from here, I began. Not to rehash old arguments, but to find a path forward. Vanessa tensed visibly, but Marcus placed his hand over hers. I think that's a good idea, he said. I took a deep breath. First, I want to apologize for not being more direct about my concerns regarding the business and the family home. I should have tried harder to make you understand why they mattered to me, rather than resorting to legal maneuvers. Vanessa looked surprised at my apology. She remained silent, but I could see her listening. That said, I continued, I believe I made the right decision to protect our family's legacy, not just the material assets, but the values and history they represent. Your father and uncle built that business not just to make money, but to create something meaningful that would last beyond their lifetimes. You could have trusted me to understand that, Vanessa finally spoke. Instead, you went behind my back. After you told me I wasn't family? After you made plans to sell everything without consulting me? I kept my voice gentle despite the challenging words. Trust works both ways, Vanessa. She looked down at her hands. I shouldn't have said that. About you not being family. It was cruel and untrue. The admission, small as it was, felt monumental. Thank you for saying that. But I still think you overreacted, she added quickly. The trust, the management team, all of it. It felt like you didn't think I was capable. It wasn't about capability, I clarified. It was about priorities. You saw assets to be liquidated or leveraged. I saw our family's heritage. The house where your father grew up, where you grew up. The business he built with his brother. These aren't just things, Vanessa. They're the physical embodiment of our family story. Marcus nodded. She has a point, Van. Remember how upset you were when my parents sold our childhood home? You said they erased your memories of visiting there. Vanessa shot him a look, but her expression softened slightly. So what now? What's your grand plan for our family reconciliation? No grand plan, I assured her. Just small steps. Sunday dinners, perhaps. Honest conversations. Respecting each other's perspectives even when we disagree. And the business? The house. She pressed. The arrangements stay as they are. You have a significant role in the business, with the professional support to help it thrive. The house remains in the family, available for gatherings and traditions. And Emma and Tyler's education is secured, regardless of what happens between us. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. I've been working with the management team, she finally said. They're actually implementing some of my ideas for expansion. I'm glad, I said sincerely. Your father always said you had good business instincts. The conversation continued, not solving everything but opening doors that had been firmly shut. By the time they prepared to leave, something had shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but the possibility of it. As they gathered their things, Emma pulled me aside. Are you and Mom fighting because she said you weren't really family? I was startled by her perception. You heard about that? She nodded solemnly. I heard Mom crying to Dad about it. She said she didn't mean it, but didn't know how to take it back. Children often understand more than we give them credit for. Families sometimes say hurtful things when they're angry or scared, I explained. The important thing is to apologize and try to do better. Like when I told Tyler his art project was stupid, and then I felt bad and helped him fix it? Exactly like that. I smiled, hugging her close. At the door, Vanessa hesitated, then surprised me with a brief hug. Next Sunday at our house, she said. If you want to. I'd like that very much. After they left, I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. The path to healing would be long, with likely setbacks along the way. But we had taken the first steps. Christmas that year found us gathered in the family home, for the first time, since the conflict began. Vanessa had invited me to stay overnight in the guest room, rather than return to my apartment. As we sat around the tree, watching Emma and Tyler open gifts, I caught Vanessa looking at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years, a softness reminiscent of the daughter I had raised. Later, as we prepared dinner together in the kitchen, she asked unexpectedly, was it worth it? Standing up to me the way you did. I considered the question carefully. Yes, not because I wanted to hurt you or win some power struggle, but because sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. She nodded slowly. I'm beginning to understand that. That evening, as Emma helped me arrange photos on the mantel, she picked up one of Frank holding her as a baby. Tell me about Grandpa again, she requested. About what he was like when you first met him. As I shared stories of Frank's kindness, his humor, his dedication to family, I realized I was passing more than memories to my granddaughter. I was transmitting values, teaching her what it means to honor those we love, to protect what matters, to stand firm when necessary. You're a lot like him, Emma observed. Strong but nice about it. Strong but nice about it, I repeated, smiling. That's a wonderful compliment. Later, as the house quieted and the Christmas lights twinkled in the darkness, I thought about the journey of the past year. From the heartbreaking words in Jessica's office to this moment of tentative peace. From you're not family to next Sunday at our house. Not a perfect resolution, but a genuine one, built on hard truths and the enduring bonds that even harsh words couldn't permanently sever. Sometimes the greatest act of love is standing firm when it would be easier to give in. Sometimes family is defined not by blood, but by the willingness to fight for what matters, even when it's difficult. And yes, sometimes you should never mess with a woman over 60. We've learned a thing or two about what's worth protecting. So what about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family to protect something important? or found yourself on either side of a family conflict that seemed impossible to resolve. Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else find the courage to protect what matters to them. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this story, and hit that notification bell to catch my next video. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late to stand up for yourself and what you believe in.